Okay, so we have some more news items here and we'll go one by one. And first news, that is bouts of extreme weather. What it says is that the southwest monsoon that began to retreat from subcontinent, while Kerala and Uttarakhand that received record rainfall in October. So, what is the quantity of rainfall? Here, the IMD, that is Indian Meteorological Department, that claims that the Kerala and Mahe region received 124% access from rainfall from October 14 to October 20. Now, the region that had received 161.2 millimeter against the normal 72.1 millimeter rainfall, and overall, Kerala that recorded 121% excess rainfall. Now, Uttarakhand that recorded 192.6 millimeter that against the usual 35.3 millimeter. Now, the latest forecast here it claims above normal rainfall that are expected in the coming days. So here, which explains the torrential rain here. That is, there are different factors that plays a in Kerala and Uttarakhand. There have been two rain-bearing low pressure systems and that are active in the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region. Here, the low pressure system in the Arabian Sea that contributed to the heavy rain in Kerala. Now, the rainfall in northern India is due to western disturbance that cause periodic influx of moisture laden clouds from the Mediterranean Mediterranean Sea. Here, the Bay of Bengal that continues to be warm and strong winds that are reaching Uttarakhand. Here, the in turn that contributes to rainfall in several parts of the northeastern India. Here, we have now how is the delayed monsoon that withdrawal responsible? Now, the monsoon that has begun its retreat and it was expected to fully retreat in the span of 10 days, but the monsoon withdrawal is not complete and its associated clouds are still lingering on. Now, the atmosphere and the ocean that have to be considered as a whole, and the push up for moisture which rushes to fill differences in temperature between oceans and land that results in rain everywhere. Now, the warm oceans that contribute to intense spells of rainfall in pocket that followed by long rainless spells. Now, the monsoon cycle that is prone to large variation, and every year regional factors that get accentuated that leads to extreme climate events. Now, what where the factors responsible for disaster can be seen. Now, the changes in the global meteorological factors that leads to torrential rain and also repaired the monsoon deficit. Now, the vagaries in climate reveal their impact on the damage that they cause, and the latter is due to society's environmental choices. Now, Kerala and Uttarakhand that have large tracts of hilly terrain that are prone to landslips. Now, the construction that has continued unabated even on land unsuited for human habitations. Now, the consequences of unplanned development that causes a serious threat to inhabitants. GM rice. Here we talk about economic development. Now, the French that manufacture of rice flour claimed and found unauthorized genetically modified rice in consignment of 500 tons of broken rice imported from India. Now, the European Union that does not permit any use of genetically modified crops or rice and that are forced manufacturers to carry out a mass recall of products. Here, Indian authorities that were investigating the allegation based on the complaints. Here, what is GM rice? GM foods that are derived from plants are those genes that are artificially modified, and it is done by inserting genetic material from another organism. and giving a new property to them. Now, these property that include increasing yield tolerance to a herbicide that resisting to disease or drought or improving its nutritional value. Now, the best known variety of GM rice is golden rice. It basically involves the insertion of genes from a plant, both daffodils and maize, that have been used, and a soil bacterium that is to create a grain that is enriched with vitamin A. Now, India that has approved the commercial cultivation of only one GM crop, that is BT cotton, that is approved a commercial cultivation. Now, no GM food crop that has ever been approved for cultivation, but confined field trials have been allowed for 20 GM crops. Now, trials have been carried out by public universities, research institutions. Now, they are Indian Agriculture Research Institute, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, and private firms such as Bayer, Bioscience, and Mayo. What about exports if we talk? The commerce ministry that has clarified that as commercial cultivation of GM rice is banned, and there is no question of exports of GM rice from India. And it is also explained that the EU was not sure of exact source of the contaminants, and it could have occurred during the processing of the rice flour in Europe. Despite the outrage, it initiated an investigation by APEDA. APEDA, that means Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. It identified a Maharashtra based trader as a source of the rice consignment and had been given a non GMO certification by a testing agency before shipping. How it impacts Indian farmers. India is the world's top rice exporter, and it earns 65,000 crore last year. Also, it sells 80 million tons of grains, about a quarter is premium basmati. Now, the 75 countries that buys Indian rice, among them West Asian nations, the US and the UK, that are biggest importer of basmati. While the majority of non-basmati rice that goes to African countries and Nepal and Bangladesh, now the farmers that might also face actions, what the US in 2006 faced an import ban by its trading partners such as Japan, Russia, and the EU on rice. What the solution can be seen here? The scientists and farmers demand that regulatory regime needs to be strengthened, and it has to be done for the sake of domestic and export consumers. So we have another topic that relates to the health, and it is relates to our GS paper too. It is related to governance. It is related to some of the schemes. So let's go each one by one. The Prime Minister is set to inaugurate India's largest scheme to scale up health infrastructure, that is Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission, that is aimed at ensuring a robust public health infrastructure in both urban as well as in rural area. Now we have Ayushman Bharat scheme, and now it is health infrastructure mission. Okay, so there's a difference. It is also capable of responding to public health emergencies or disease outbreak. So this for disease outbreak it can also ensure. Now the Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission, that the Health Infrastructure Mission provides support to 17,788 rural health and wellness centers in 10 high focus states. It also established 11,024 urban health and wellness centers across the country. Now, the mission's objective is to fill critical gaps in public health infrastructure in critical care facility and primary care in both the urban and rural areas. It also ensures access to critical care services in all districts of the country. with over 5 lakh population through exclusive critical care hospital blocks, and the remaining districts will be covered through referral services. Now, what all are the features of this mission? The integrated public health labs that will also be set up in all districts. It gives people access to a full range of diagnostic services through a network of laboratories across the country. And it also aims to establish an IT enabled disease surveillance system through a network of surveillance laboratories at block, district, regional, and national levels. So, all the public health labs that will be connected through the integrated health information portal, which will be expanded to all states and union territories. Now, the mission that aims at ensuring a robust system for detecting, investigating, preventing, and combating public health emergencies and disease outbreak in the light of pandemics. So this mission basically address to few points such as 17 new public health units will be set up and 33 existing public health units will be strengthened. And it will also train frontline healthcare workers to respond to the public health emergencies effectively. It is also will set up other infrastructure. It includes a national institution for One Health, four national institutes from virology, a regional research platform, a WHO Southeast Asia region, and nine biosafety level 3 laboratories and five regional centers for disease control. Now, reason for its importance is now India has a long needed, ubiquitous healthcare system. Let's go with the meaning of this word search. It may be sub humongous or okay. It's very common. Okay, ubiquitous. Now, the study from the state of democracy in South Asia, and it's round 3 by Lokniti CSDS in 2019 that highlighted that access to the public health care remained elusive to those living to the margins. Now, the study that found that 70% of the locations have public health care services. Now, the availability was less in rural areas, that is 65%, that compared to the urban areas, which is 87%. Now, the survey that further depicts that 45% of the people would access healthcare service by walking, whereas 43% of the locations they needed to use transport. Now, the survey also found that proximity to healthcare service is higher in urban localities. Okay, just a minute. We have another topic that is GS paper 3. It's related to the technology and it is related to the insulin and diabetes. That is a tissue health. The study that has examined the effect of the insulin on liver cells that taken from mice, and now researchers that have also uncovered how insulin amounts to shape the flow of information through the signaling network. Now, the study that provides insights into which major and minor components that are important in keeping the signaling process intact. Now, the insulin is a hormone that's secreted by B cell of the pancreas. It is commonly associated with the ability to regulate glucose metabolism. Now, mechanism is the important mechanism in the cell is insulin signaling, and it is a series of biochemical reaction that convey information about the availability of insulin and the necessity to regulate the glucose in the blood. So there are two main pathways for insulin signaling that's named AKT and ERK. It is together balances metabolism and growth. These specifically control the storage of glucose in the liver and also it stimulate glucose transport in skeletal muscle and fat. Abnormalities in insulin that signaling thus impact the health and survival of organism. Past studies that have found that the later studies from around 1949 have revealed that it plays a larger role and it helps in the growth and maintenance of tissues. So, despite years of study, fundamental details that are not known about the insulin impact on the cells. So, we are not yet found that. So, recent study have found that the study was a collaboration between TIFR Mumbai, that is TIFR, and it is TIFR in Hyderabad and the IIT Bombay. Now, the study was done on liver cells isolated from mice. The experimental design braces both normal cells of insulin as in the healthy individual and abnormal levels of insulin that is associated with patho pathophysiology. Here now the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, that is Mumbai and Hyderabad, that explains that previous studies employed different, mostly very high amount of insulin to investigate changes in signaling. Now, the new study revealed that component network properties are robustness of signaling and has not been assessed by varying insulin inputs. The new study employs multiple regime of insulin, both normal and abnormal. It together has illustrated that changes in level of insulin can shape the flow of information within cells. It also found that inputs from the fasting insulin levels that created a memory that improved the fed insulin's input. It also elucidates that the detrimental impact of constant high insulin, as in the case of uncontrolled feeding habits without a fasting phase, thus its effects on signaling molecules that govern tissue maintenance and growth. It identifies potential novel regulatory components and parameters. These modulations led to a better therapeutic interventions in the future to reduce tissue damage beyond the usual impact on blood glucose. So it's a research only. Now we have poliovirus. Poliovirus we know that has been eradicated from India in the year of 2014. Now the virus that has affected our lives since the time of Egyptian civilization is the polio virus. Every year, 24 October is marked as a World Polio Day. Here, it is the celebration of the birth of the John Salk, that is American researcher that who have developed the first polio vaccine in 1955. Background here is polio virus was first isolated in 1909 by Carl Landstrainer and Erwin Popper. Now, the first human coronavirus was isolated in 1933 by Leland David Bushnell and Carl Alfred Brandley. Here, the polio virus is the simplest known human virus. It is very small at only 30 nanometers, while in comparison with SARS-CoV-2 is slightly large virus at about 100 nanometers. Characteristics here is and symptoms that polio virus that causes a disabling and life-threatening disease that called poliomyelitis poliomyelitis. Now, polio virus is highly contagious and it can easily spread from one person to another person, especially via the fecal, fecal route. Now, children that under the age of the 5 are the higher risk of developing the serious poliovirus related complications which affect their quality of life. And here the R, that is not value, that is the number of people one affected individual can infect polio, for polio is about 5 to 7 people. For COVID-19, the R naught value is 1.4 to 3.9. So it is more than the COVID. So 25% of all people infected with the polio suffered from various symptoms. Symptoms such as sore throat, fever, tiredness, nausea, headache, and stomach. Here, in the smaller portion, the infected individuals can develop other symptoms like pins and needles or a sensation of tingling or prickling in the arms and the legs. Now, the symptoms such as um, meningitis and paralysis of arms and legs are also seen. What all are the causes behind? That is the poor hand hygiene, lack of access to clean water, improper sewage systems are the most common reasons for the incident and transmission of polio. Vaccines. The development of the first polio vaccines was invented by Johns Salk in 1950s, and this was a very safe and effective inactivated poliovirus vaccine that is administered by injection. Here, though the vaccine is highly effective and the availability of disposable syringe was rare, so thus the speed of immunization was low earlier. So then it came the oral polio vaccine invented by Albert Sabin in 1961. So this was the more easily administered to large number of people with ease. Now eradication in India, that polio eradicated education is one of the most ambitious global health initiative in history. So polio will be only the second human disease in the history to be eradicated. The first was smallpox. Now the only place in the world until 2021 where wild polio exists are in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So, the successful use of these vaccines reduced the number of polio cases from 3.5 lakh in 1988 to 33 in 2018. So, since the introduction of Global Polio Eradication Initiative in 1988, the rigorous efforts of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare achieved fruitful results. Now, the above efforts and robust vaccine program has made a resounding success, and that India has been declared polio free as on March 2014. So now we have some prelims news related to science, related to Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowship, talk about plants, talk about Benny buffaloes and its choreas. So there are 5 topics. So let's go one by one. Here, if we talk about science, this is a Defense Expo of 2022. Defense Minister that Singh chaired the Ambassadors Roundtable for Def Expo 2022 in New Delhi. So Def Expo 2022 to sow seeds of successful new ventures and international partnership for shared prosperity. And the exhibition is to boost investment that bolster the Indian aerospace and defense ecosystem, and it cater to the defense requirements of the world. So India is basically open of doing business on a mutually beneficial, collaborative basis for all around welfare of everyone. Now we have defense exports that grew by 334% in last 5 years. Now India now exporting to over 75 countries due to collaborative efforts. Now the ministry has also launched Def Expo website, that is www.defexpo.gov.in. Now we have Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowship. It is the Union Minister for Education and Skill Development and Entrepreneurship that has launched phase second of the Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowship. It is of 2 years long fellowship that conceived to create opportunities for the young and dynamic individual to contribute to enhancing skill development at the grassroots level. Now, the first 2 years fellowship that seeks to combine classroom sessions by academic partners of IIM. It also aims to create sorry it also aims to create uh, credible plans and identify barriers in rising employment, economic output, and promoting livelihoods in rural areas. It also operationalized the mission skill acquisition and knowledge awareness for livelihood promotion, that is Sankalp. A World Bank loan that is a state program was launched. Now Sankalp that has engaged with district skill committees and to effectively reduce the mismatch between the supply and demand of skilled manpower in the country. If we talk about the plants here, the science and technology that the Singapore teams built the device to talk to plants that through electric signals. Now, the team further clarifies that these inventions could help farmers to communicate with their plants and learn about damage due to pests and or environmental stress. The device that consists of a soft electrode attached to the leaves of a Venus flytrap plant is using a hydrogel adhesive that linked by wires to a smartphone app. And the invention is currently limited by the fact that Venus flytrap plants that communicate differently than farmed crops and plants also uses other types of signals. Okay, now we talk about bunny buffalo. It is related to science and technology. Now, the birth of the first IVF calf of a buffalo breed named Bunny in the country takes India OPU IVF work to the next level. Now, the first IVF bunny calf is born out of 6 bunny IVF pregnancies. It established at the doorstep of farmers, the farmer that is Vijay Wala of Sushila Agro Farms that is located in Dhanej in Somnath district of Gujarat. Now the scientists aspire 3 bunny buffaloes of agro farms. They subjected 19 oocytes, that is egg cells, to an intervaginal cultural device. From these 3 bunny buffaloes. Now, both the government and the scientist fraternity see great potential in the field of IVF of buffaloes. They are striving hard to improve cattle wealth in the country. Now we have Agorias. The Gorias that are indigenous Muslims in the North Assam Darang district. So the indigenous Koreas, that is a category of Assamese Muslims who played a part in bringing the encroachment issue to the fore 6 years ago. Now they are worried about losing access to the land they had been using through generations for seasonal farming and grazing their livestock. They now feel the heat of an eviction drive that was ostensibly aimed at migrant Bengali Muslim that settlers on the banks of Brahmaputra. Now the government that plans to evict them to pave the way for the Gorukoti farm project. Thank you.